But we have Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer standing by. Abortion also a major topic in her debate last night with Republican challenger Tudor Dixon. Here's some of their exchange from the debate.
When Governor Whitmer tells you that this is going to be Roe, it's not even close to Roe. It's not codifying Roe in our Constitution. But it would be the most radical abortion law in the entire country. The only place that has something similar are China and North Korea.
None of what she just said is true. And here's why you can't trust anything she's saying when it comes to reproductive rights. She's the one that said a 14-year-old child raped by her uncle is a perfect example of someone who should not have reproductive rights and the ability to choose. She went further to say it is healing for a person who's raped to carry that child to term. I couldn't disagree more, and she's proven you cannot trust her on this issue.
And Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer joins us now. Governor, good morning. Thanks for stopping through after the debate last night. How big of an issue do you suspect abortion is at this moment, 13 days out of Election Day? We've been talking about Pennsylvania, where it seems to have subsided anyway in comparison to the economy in terms of a concern for voters. But it was a big topic of discussion last night for you all.
Well, I think when SCOTUS reversed Roe, Michigan was one of the few states that would have made the biggest dramatic swing. We have a 1931 law on the books that makes it a felony, no exceptions for rape or incest, criminalizes doctors and nurses. And so we would have overnight gone from being a pro-choice state to one of having the most extreme laws on the books. And that's why I filed my lawsuit. And right now, the only, it's hanging by a thread, but the only reason Michigan is still a pro-choice state at this moment is because of my lawsuit. We, the people, will be able to vote on this at the ballot November 8th, and I'm hoping we codify Roe into law. It does not do what my opponent says it does. It simply says Michigan women can still make their own choices about their reproductive rights.
Governor Whitmer, test scores nationally for students have really suffered in the aftermath of COVID, and your opponent really attacked the results of Michigan's testing of students in reading and math. How big of an issue has education been in this race?
Well, education is a huge issue in Michigan, and here's why. My opponent is being bankrolled by Betsy DeVos. You all know Betsy DeVos now after her stint in the Trump administration. She wants to divest $500 million out of Michigan schools. Now, I just delivered the biggest investment in state history, working with a Republican legislature to get our kids back on track. That would be the biggest setback. If we really want to improve scores, we really want to make sure our kids are prepared, we've got to keep them safe, which means we need some gun safety measures, and we got to continue to invest in their education and support teachers. That's precisely what we've been doing. If my opponent's the next governor, we are going to fall backward.
Governor Whitmer, this is Eddie Glaude. I want to stick with this education question for a minute. One of the sharpest exchanges between the two of you last night involved the question about banning certain books from school libraries, and you countered with the shooting that happened at Oxford High School. Talk a little bit about the concern around CRT, the concern around sex or what is considered inappropriate literature, and your counter with regards to violence in schools in Michigan.
So there's a community debate that is happening here in Michigan about a certain number of books that were available in the library. I'll always support parental's ability to know what the materials are and to opt their kids out. That is under state law. These were not, easily retrieved materials. But she is dividing a community for her own political benefit. The biggest threat to our kids is gun violence. In this country, and only in the United States of America, the number one killer of children is gun violence. My opponent will offer nothing in terms of solving that and keeping our kids safer. She, in fact, has said the best case scenario is to have more guns in schools so we can have someone to shoot the shooter. I couldn't disagree more. The best case scenario is preventing the shooter in the first place. Gun violence represents the biggest threat to our kids in our schools, and that's why secure storage, background checks, red flag laws would go a long way toward keeping our kids safe. She's offering only thoughts and prayers. We've tried that for 30 years. It ain't working. It's time to have some common sense gun safety measures.
Governor, all of these issues that have been addressed just in the past few minutes, guns, education, abortion, they're critical issues. There's no doubt about it. But overriding this and overlapping all of this, I would suspect in Michigan, as with many other states, is the daily combat that most citizens have with inflation, gas, and groceries. As governor, not a federal official, as governor, what can you do to help your citizens cope with inflation?
Well, Mike, there's no question. Price of everything's gone up. And so we've made record investments in bringing down the cost of daycare and leveling the tuition barrier so people can get skills and get into better paying jobs. I put Michigan's fiscal house in order. We've paid down $14 billion in debt, amassed a record rainy day fund, and got our credit rating upgraded. And now we're in a position we could do more. I have proposed repealing the retirement tax in Michigan. I have proposed tripling the earned income tax credit for people who are working full time but can't keep their head above water. These are concrete ways that we can help give people some relief as global inflation continues to pinch. We feel the pinch of it. But I also want to recognize, Mike, I think it's important that we talk about our democracy. We know that election deniers pose a huge threat to our democracy. My opponent is one of them. I saw a stat the other day that had the top 10 threats to American democracy. 3 of them were candidates here in Michigan: the gubernatorial candidate, the Secretary of State candidate, and the Attorney General. They still say Joe Biden didn't win the last election, and none of them will pledge to accept the will of the people in a future election. That's downright dangerous.
All right, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, thank you so much for being with us. We greatly appreciate it.